mirrored somewhat other. But, I mean, yeah, J.K. Rowling, sort of radical feminist authority been raised. I think fundamentally all of the arguments do come down to biological determinism. They think that your body defines who you are and who you can be, and they, I think we see on some sort of, there's a range of how far they've broken from their sort of left roots, but fundamentally they're not going to come to the most progressive conclusions. They're always going to end up in reactionary places, because their starting point is that who you are and what you can do is defined by your body. Yeah, obviously this has been an ongoing argument that I think has been had within feminist movements for a very long time. So it's, I think, frustrating sometimes to see it come up again in ways that are then reframed as, well, you know, now it's about women's rights against trans people, and actually it's the same arguments that are used against women as well, actually. I think lots of people have talked about, you know, uniting with what it means to unite the working class, and I guess I wanted to add, in terms of who is the working class, I think it's really important to understand that we're talking about the sort of economic position in society, but so what that means, right, is that the movement on the street is the working class, right? The people who came out over Palestine is the working class. The people who come out against the fascists are the working class. It's not about just saying everything is reduced down to what happens in your workplace, even though obviously that is really central. But I think sometimes it can sound like you're talking about sort of boring, I don't know, like boring trade union meetings, when actually you want exciting trade union meetings, because it's about all of the things that are going on in society. I think Section 28 has kind of been come back on, and also I wasn't alive, so I think that I think there is an important question about, do we accept their framing of how society has to work and how laws have to work? Yes, they've had this Supreme Court ruling, but now they have to try and enforce it, and that's where we can fight back. And like, it doesn't matter so much what they're saying the law is legally on paper if we absolutely say, well, we're not standing for it, and actually you're not going to get anywhere trying to make this happen. I think there are lots of questions, there are lots of links between on the question of mental distress and trans people. I think it's important to make clear that being trans is not a mental illness, but also the rates of mental distress amongst trans people are incredibly high, and I think obviously a large portion of that is the hostility towards trans people within society. I think sometimes, especially around the Cass report, you saw it a bit, where it would be framed as you know, young people getting forced into being trans instead of getting the mental health help they need. Actually, no children are getting the mental health help they need, or the trans healthcare that they need. Fundamentally, we need to be providing resources to all of those services and supporting people through all of those things. It's not somehow like a competition where you're either getting help for mental distress or you're being told that you're trans. Actually, you know, part of fighting for better trans healthcare is also that everyone should have access to support for mental distress. And I think Laura's point about being ambitious is really crucial. I think it's obviously easy to be sort of pessimistic and that everything is being rolled back, but I think we do have to say, well, what is the vision for society we have? So both in terms of, you know, our end goal is to actually want to dismantle capitalism, but also what are we fighting for right now? We're not just fighting for saying like, oh, sorry, we shouldn't have done that ruling. You know, we want to actually fight for better trans healthcare, for self-ID. And I think that's a position we have to take into the trans movement as well, is that when we're taking part in these, we can't get narrowed down to, you know, well, if we have, I mean, this comes up in student politics a lot. It's like, well, what can the university practically do? So you have to limit your goals to, you know, whatever policy the university has. Whereas actually, we want a mass movement that has incredibly ambitious goals that says, actually, we don't have to treat trans people this way at all. And I think that in terms of how do we, achieve that, I think we have seen excellent things in Manchester. I think everyone who can needs to try and go to the process. I think the Trade Unions for Trans Rights initiative is amazing, and I think we need to have a real clarity in our politics, in what we're arguing for, but go in, with open minds. We need to be engaging in these conversations and trying to fight for the type of society that we want to see. I think fundamentally the crucial question behind all of this is that actually we want a revolution, is that I want to see capitalism be dismantled, and innate in capitalism, through the contradictions, there are constantly going to be crises, and all these sorts of things are going to be thrown up, and there are movements on so many different issues. And actually, I think one of the real strengths of the Socialist Workers' Party, as people have said, is that because we have an analysis of the system, because we understand where these things come from, we can have principled positions on all of these issues. And when something like this does happen, we're ready to react. We know what the response should be, and we're ready to get out on the streets and fight for it. So if you're not a member of the SOP, I would encourage you to join.